From Israel to Ukraine, we are living in complicated and challenging times. As we prepare to celebrate Passover, our festival of liberation, redemption, and miracles, we acknowledge that too many people are still living in unacceptable conditions and circumstances. It's an opportunity to remind us of our collective responsibility to one another, to memory, to family, and to hope. It has now been over a year since the unprovoked invasion of Ukraine created historic levels of humanitarian needs within the country, as well as among the waves of refugees in the region, especially in Central and Western Europe. To date, I'm proud to tell you that over $2.3 million have been generously donated to the World Union's Ukraine Crisis Fund. Again, we offer our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all of you for your support and generosity. As part of our ongoing series of updates, today you will hear some of the ways your contributions have saved and transformed lives, met the needs of real people in real time, and how we are offering hope for a brighter future. We will have an opportunity for questions and answers today. Please type any questions you may have through the Q&A function so that they can be addressed. It is now my privilege to introduce my co-chair of the Ukraine Crisis Fund, author of The Four Children of the Haggadah, which you'll hear about a bit later, and Rabbi at the Liberal Jewish Synagogue in London, Rabbi Igor Zinkov.
Thank you, Carole, and welcome to everybody who is attending this update call. And thank you so much to all of you who supported the World Union and European Union for Progressive Judaism Ukraine Crisis Fund in words or in donations or any other ways. And I'm here to tell you about how the past year was, how impactful the last year was for Ukrainians and Ukrainian refugees. There is a wide variety of relief and other programmatic support addressed by the Ukraine Crisis Fund. And looking back at the 1 year and 1 month that this fund exists, I can see that over 10,000 people already received support from us. And this is a very modest estimation. There are 4 principles of our work, and we call it 4R approach. It is rescue, helping people to escape the areas where it is dangerous to live. It is relief, helping people to live in the difficult conditions in Ukraine or shortly after they became refugees. Resettlement, helping them to resettle in a new country, whether they chose it temporarily or chose to live there for a long period of time. And the last R of our approach is hasn't come yet because it's rebuilding. And we hope that very soon we will use this R and we will help people to rebuild their homes and communities. So you can see on the list in front of you the wide variety of programs that we helped to fund or organize. They begin with safe transport, but actually now more and more people need support in resettlement category. So it's been 1 year since the war started. It means that some people live as refugees for over a year now. And 1 year, although it seems a long time, it's not enough to learn a new language. 1 year is not enough to find yourself and find a good enough job. And this is why we can see that some people have lost their accommodation if they were provided by kindness of people in some countries, but now they have to find their own ways to live and place to live. So we we try to help people with immediate needs, but also it's important for us, for the team of Ukraine Crisis Fund, to be responsive to what we call under the radar needs. It's programs, such programs as programs for special needs children in refugee families, or women's empowerment programs for refugees in Israel, and help people who go through hardship in their life. So we have means to work with partner organizations, as well as send people bank transfers directly. We also, I think what makes us unique and what makes the World Union for Progressive Judaism unique, and in this crisis, in this war, is that the World Union has network of organizations and communities on the ground, starting with Ukraine, and we'll hear more about it later, but also in neighboring countries and European countries. And this became our crucial network of partners through which we know exactly what's happening in countries like Poland, like Slovakia, Spain, or the United Kingdom, and Germany, and Israel, of course. And because of this, we can be very efficient in our support, because we know exactly what happens on the ground, and because we can act quickly. So one of these organizations, and one of our newest grantees, is organizations called Frida. They provide medical support. They will tell a bit more about them later, but they provide essential medical support for Ukrainians and Ukrainian refugees. And I would like to introduce you Mark Niewiaszki. It's Frida's executive director, and who will give us a view from the ground in Ukraine and how Ukraine Crisis Fund supports and advances Frida's work in saving lives. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark, and I'm the chairman of the Frida Foundation. And to tell you a little bit about our activity, I think that pictures speak louder than words. So I would like to pull your attention to this video that combines a little bit of what we do in the past year here in Ukraine, shot by our volunteers in the many visits that we made to the regions most affected by this war. So please play the video. Yes, thank you so much. So basically, as you saw in the videos, what can I say about Frida? Frida is a foundation of medical volunteers, an Israeli-Ukrainian foundation. We have a few missions. The main mission that we do is we take teams of our highly qualified doctors, mind that doctors, not nurses or paramedics, but doctors from our some 475 volunteer registered in our foundation, most of them from Ukraine, some of them from other parts of the world, like the United States and Israel, that join us in rotation for a few weeks at a time, and they go about their business. So we take those teams of doctors and we arrive with them to the region most affected by the war, mostly the occupied territories, as close to the border as you can get. We go to places like Bakhmut, Kherson, Kharkov, Zaporozhye, all over the Donetsk region, and we deploy our teams there in one of the clinics or the shelters or other locations that we have arranged for that, and we intake patients. I don't think anybody will be surprised if I say that the medical infrastructure in Ukraine wasn't something to brag about even before the start of this horrible war. But now those regions are deserted of any medical help besides of course, the military hospitals and military points of stabilization for warriors. So the civilian population left in those regions has nowhere to turn to. What we do is we try to help with that situation as much as possible. Now, basically, the kind of people we meet there is the weakest layers of the citizens of Ukraine, basically those who are left behind. We're talking about single mothers, the elderly, the sick, let's say the alcoholics and the addicts, and those who cannot afford to leave and go to central of Ukraine or become refugees and go elsewhere. And sometimes we speak with this grandmother that comes to see our gynecologist, and she's saying, I haven't seen a doctor for 7 years, not only from the beginning of the war. So what we do is bring multi-qualified doctors, like we bring an endocrinologist and cardiologist and a gynecologist and a pediatric doctor, and try to see as many patients in one visit as possible. Usually it happens over the weekend because most of our volunteers have day jobs and their vacation is coming during their weekend with us to those regions and try to help. Usually we take between 20 to 40 doctors at a time to each of those cities, and we see during 2 days around 800, sometimes 900, sometimes 1,000 patients. And we distribute tons of humanitarian help and of much needed medications in those areas. One more thing that we do is evacuations, which has become a most important resource of ours that we also lend to other structures and also to the army. We have a small but very, very highly qualified armada of ambulances. So in each of those visits, we bring along 1 or 2 ambulances and try to evacuate the hard cases, the urgent cases, to rear hospitals. And sometimes to treatments in Europe, in Germany, in Israel, in some cases, let's say the most difficult cases that cannot have the proper treatment in Ukraine. This is why such cooperations, like with the World Union of Progressive Judaism, is so important to us because it provides a lifeline of much needed support in terms of medical equipment, in terms of medications, in terms of a stream of volunteers from your communities that join our mission and help out. We started very small, just me, my good friend and partner, and a few doctors that we rounded up in the first days of the war. And now we are all over the map. We do between 3 to 5 ambulatory visits a week, which is insanely a lot and insanely difficult logistically in this country that is during active war, in the hardest conditions. Sometimes we intake patients in shelters, in the doctors wearing helmets and vests, and the sounds of artillery, that's our soundtrack during all of the weekend. We grew. We helped in this year to over 45,000 patients, our doctors seen. We did hundreds of evacuations. And we're trying to grow a little more and do more things simultaneously. That's why this help and this support is very much needed. And one more small mission, not so small, pretty ambitious, that we do, and we also rely on this partnership to help us with that, is to teach and to bring up a little bit the level of the medical qualifications in this country. What we do is we take our doctors, our volunteers from Ukraine, and we bring them to Israel, we bring them to Germany to do masterclass, to do stages in the local hospitals, to see Western medicine, and to come back and be better caregivers than they were before. All the volunteers that are joining us from abroad are doing master classes in the local universities and hospitals to share their knowledge. That's something that's very important to us and very much needed and very much appreciated by the local medical community. I think in a nutshell, that describes what we do, and thank you so much for your concentration.
Mark, Yisher Koach to you and all the good people at Frida for your commitment and dedication to assisting so many people. We are proud to be partnering with you, and we wish you strength and courage as you continue this sacred and holy work. Thank you so much for all that you are doing and for joining us today from Kiev.
Thank you so much.
Earlier, I mentioned that the World Union is offering a new edition for your Pesach Sederim this year. And thanks to Rabbi Igor Zinkov, here it is, you will be receiving it shortly. We are delighted to share with you, right off the press or the printer, as the case may be, The 4 Children of Ukraine, a one-page edition that shares the stories of our brothers and sisters in Ukraine. You will be receiving this document by email and will also be able to access it on our website, www.wupj.org. So I encourage you to share with your families as you gather around the Seder table. I'd like to welcome someone who really needs no introduction to us, our wonderful Rabbi Alex Duchovny, Chief Reform Rabbi of Ukraine, and now leading some of our communities in Haifa. Rabbi, thank you for your leadership and your inspiration and for sharing your thoughts and observations with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Possibly 20 years ago, I met a young medical doctor who came to my office in Kiev Tikva Center and said, I'm Jewish, my both parents are Jewish. Can you find me a Jewish wife? So Rabbi is a matchmaker, and he added, I'm not a perfect, but I'm a limited edition. And this limited edition is a volunteer in Frida. And this is how we learned about Frida, from very prominent medical urologist, who is now very prominent in Ukraine, Leonid Stilwasser. And with this surname, his family, his wife and 2 teenager children came on Aliyah to Israel. They are in Haifa. And this actually pushed me, and we started to think together with the Vice President of the World Union, Eyal Ronder, that we need to support this kind of people who just arrived and who are still looking for a community, I'm not saying for congregation, but we also would like to unite not only Ukrainians, but all those who are coming for running away from war in Russia or from tyrant last European dictator in Belarus. So this is an idea to start. And when I actually said that let us find finances to do Pesach Seder for this kind of people from Ukrainian Crisis Fund, and we agreed that we will have a support. In 2 days, we had a full list of people, 60 people immediately said, we will come, we will join. And I'm preparing now the Pesach Seder here in Haifa for this kind of people. And this family of Leonid Stelvasser with 2 teenagers will come and celebrate Pesach as they did when they were members and still are members of Kiev Atikva congregation. So this Haifa Atikva community is like a symbol of what World Union presents. I always say that strong people don't put others down, and we are a strong family of the World Union for Progressive Judaism who are lifting people up by supporting not only financially, by preserving values, human values, values of Judaism. And I would like to say thank you to all donors and to all the professionals and lay leaders of the World Union who are doing an amazing job, actually pushing ahead humanity against tyranny and for peace and for freedom. We are just a week away from Pesach Seder, so I wish all of us to be free of tyranny, to be free of thoughts, and let us all together enjoy being a part of our big World Union family. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Duchovny, for sharing those observations, and good to see you even on the screen. My name is Andrew Keene. I'm a member of the Management Committee of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, and honored to be invited to open the floor to questions from this esteemed group that's gathered on this webinar. There is a feature in the Zoom screen at the bottom that you can post a question. You can either post a general one to the group or to someone specific, and I'm going to read those out and direct it to one of our panelists today. The first question, and I think it's really important for everyone on this call to understand, is around what the process is that we have used to allocate money to the various projects and regions of the World Union that have requested funds from this campaign and this fund. So maybe Igor, if I could pass it to you and share a little bit about how we intake those requests and allocate the funds that we've collected generously.
Sure. So first of all, there is a team of the Ukraine Crisis Fund or Ukraine Crisis Committee. It consists of the Carole Sterling and I are co-chairs, but other members are Rabbi Sergio Bergman, Sonia Guntner, Yael Grant, Andrew Keene, Eyal Rodner, Glenn Rosenkratz, and Andrea Viana. So all these people are part of the team who make the work of the Ukraine Crisis Fund a reality. So whatever visual presentation you see is done by committee and professionals. And what happens when? Well, how to receive money from us? Basically, you need to apply. You need to send an email to any of us. And the team has a call. We started a year ago from twice a week Zoom call, and now we are less frequent, but it's a regular Zoom call, and we discuss all applications, and we make decisions. So there are few factors we consider during making decision. Why is not to double the actions. So for example, if there is already something happening, it is much better to help the existing organization to function, such as Frida, for example. So we don't create something new if there is something exists. So we would say no if something exists already, and would not duplicate the efforts. And when it comes to, for example, support for our Ukrainian communities, such as communities in Odessa, Kiev, Poltava, and many other places in Ukraine, most likely I can't see any reason why we would say no to supporting people who are now under the hardship of war. So there are some levels, but if it's, for example, organizing a concert for that's not must have, but nice to have, we would probably say no, and we would because this is a relief fund, the Ukraine Crisis Fund. So these are a few factors that we consider, but basically it's decision made by a group of people, group of professionals, and also with cooperation. If we need some other information, we have a really good network of our partners in Europe. We can reach out to them and ask them for their advice. But basically, if your community or your organization needs money, simply send an email to one of us, and we will help you with the process.
Rabbi, I think it's important to mention as well that all funds that are distributed, there is a very intense reporting mechanism in place so that we have accountability, and we're sure of where the money is going as it's requested.
Thank you to both of you for those points, and hope that addresses the question. It's really an important question. Pivoting a little bit, another great question that's come in, I think I'm adding a little commentary, one of the realities that we live in is that the news cycle changes very quickly and very dramatically, and there's a lot going on in this crazy world we live in. And the war in Ukraine, comes in and out of the news cycle, and therefore people, are focused on it one day and not the next. What can we do in our communities and as a world union to keep people focused on the war in Ukraine, and equally importantly, focused on supporting the people that are affected by this? Mark, you put your hand up. I'm not sure if you wanted to address this first, but happy to open it up to anyone who wants to answer that.
I did not want to interrupt the Rabbi or you, but this is a very relevant question. It's just 1 minute ago, while the Rabbi was speaking, there was a siren outside of my house here in Kiev, which is a sore reminder that although the war has a little bit dimmed down in the news cycle, as you say, every country has its own problems, the balagan that goes on in Israel right now, so Ukraine is off the news. But here the war is very much alive. You hear it every day. Just right now, if anyone is familiar with how those sirens work, it's not like in Israel, which is a siren in a certain area because it's precise. It's a siren for half of Ukraine. So just now, half of Ukraine were asked to go to shelters because there is an immediate threat. So just wanted, I couldn't miss this coincidence. Back to you.
Thank you for.
Mark, are you going to a shelter?
No, I'm not. I'm already accustomed to that, and I'm a little bit more.
What many people are saying, we are accustomed. And
yes, I have a -1 parking here, but again, I'm from Israel, so it's very much. And I'm also an adrenaline junkie. I became one during this 1 year of fighting here with Frida, so I'm staying put.
Well, please be safe, and thank you for making time to be with us this afternoon, this evening. Does anyone else want to comment on the question around the news cycle and how to keep people in our communities focused on this global event, this global issue? Please, Rabbi.
I don't think that people hear less about Ukraine in the world. I think that Ukraine is constantly on the news, and this phenomena has been, I think, unique for war conflict in the recent history. But I think what happens is that people get tired. People have their own problems, and the cost of living crisis, and the other things are happening at the same time, and other events and tragic events happening in the world, such as Turkey and such as or other different things. I think we, as a Jewish community, we are accustomed to, we know how to keep memory going, and we know how to repeat things over and over again. Every year, on Pesach, we remember something that happened thousands and thousands of years ago. Every year we repeat, we have our tools, our Jewish tools for remembering and for praying, not with words, but with our actions. And all our festivals are just a reminder of this. And I cannot see a better festival for such reminder as Pesach. I don't think it's enough to speak about freedom and ask ourselves, are we free? Where other people are practically slaves of war and slaves of the circumstances in the world. I think we need to use our pulpits if we are rabbis and talk about it. We need to use our kitchen tables and dinner tables to talk about it and raise this conversation and help. What is worrying me personally as a person who works in the Ukraine crisis fund is that the amount of money we receive now is much less than the money we spend. It means that if we continue with the spending as we go, I think in about 7 or 8 months, we will run out. And this is why we sometimes are very cautious in making decisions and supporting some projects, because we are aware that sometime in the future, we might need to spend money on something more urgent. And I think this is what worries me, but I completely understand why. I'm just saying that this is what happens.
Andrew, I just want to add as well, while I agree the news cycle, maybe Ukraine is not top of the list, I think we all need to remember we're talking about people. We're talking about human lives. We're talking about our brothers and sisters, and we need to do whatever we can to support them, regardless if it's on the front page of the news or just in our hearts. It's incumbent on us.
I'll actually use that as a jumping off point to the next question. Many of the people on this call, on this webinar over the years have formed very close personal relationships with members of our World Union communities in Ukraine, and wondering if maybe Rabbi Duchovny or Rabbi Zinkov or Rabbi Bergman could comment on the condition or the status of our communities physically, spiritually, and what you're observing from our members in our communities that are still in Ukraine.
May I say? Okay, so let's say 4 years ago, on the official list of the religious communities in Ukraine, we have 47 officially registered Reform, Progressive Liberal congregations. Now, we estimated number of those people who actively participated in our movement were around 10,000 people. At the moment, we have 11 active congregation still with the members, but many members of these congregations either in the western part of Ukraine, where the area is not so attacked by the active war zone, or in the central Ukraine. The recent figures show that out of 40 million Ukrainians, 14.5 million left Ukraine during this year. Not necessarily to Israel, Jewish people left. So many of them left to Europe, to those countries which are opening their doors. I was talking to some of the members of those who are in Germany or in other countries, like in the Netherlands, and not all of them are planning to come back. But definitely we will have this, what Rabbi Igor Sinkov said, we will have a rebuilding of the movement. Movement is not evaporating. Movement is still there. And I will add our number 5 rabbis. We need rabbis on the field, like on the ground. And this is another like challenge and the question. So there is future for a reform movement, but also at the moment we are talking about supporting those reform congregations which are presenting the values of Judaism. Today, for example, I participated in the National Council of TV and Radio of Ukraine, which is planning a new law about inclusiveness of national and ethnic minorities. And they said that we are Jewish part of Ukrainians. We are not separate group. We are Ukrainians. And we brought a lot into Ukrainian culture. For example, the president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism is a renowned composer. He is a rector of the Academy of Music. He is in Kiev. So he wrote more than 1,000 popular songs. So we are part of Ukraine, and World Union is part of the larger Jewish group, the biggest. And they always promote World Union, saying those people who are supporting activities of the World Union through different funds, through different, not only from Ukrainian Crisis Fund, but we are talking about this because this is so important for those people who are still in Ukraine. And for example, our congregations in Western Ukraine, they have synagogue building, which became shelters for Ukrainians, for resettled people who moved from Lugansk or Donetsk active war zone areas to Western Ukraine. So they are in our synagogues. And for them, we're also doing Passover Seder in Ukraine by the support of the Ukrainian Crisis Fund. So I think the role of the World Union is so important in any corner of the world, and especially where we need World Union. And this possibly is a great mission of what we are doing, because I always quote Rabbi Soloveitchik, who said that everyone is predestined, but we can change our destiny into a mission of our life. And those donors who are supporting, and members of the World Union who are supporting activities of the World Union and Ukrainian Crisis Fund, you're changing your destiny into a good mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that actually is a great way to wrap up this segment. And I did get question via WhatsApp, and that is, what is the website that all of this is being uploaded to, and where you can track some of the progress of the fund, and you'll see it on the screen in a bit, but it's wupj.org/Ukraine. But you'll see that on the screen as well. And thank you to all of those who posed questions and to the panelists who answered them for us. I will turn it over to Rabbi Sergio Bergman to provide some closing remarks for today's program.
Sorry, just Andrew, before we go to Rabbi Bergman, just a moment to thank Boris and Simon and Glenn, who've helped us with the technical parts today. Apologies, Mark, for the sound problem with your video. When we send it out, we'll make sure that the sound is working properly. So just sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This is really moving and also emotional to remember that we are still in a war, and how important it is to be connected to the pain and the challenge that we have in Ukraine, but also we need to remember our brothers and sisters in the Russian-speaker countries, because we cannot really confuse the state with our communities around. Also in Russia and Belarus, they are also living under oppression, and our commitment is really to be connected with all of them. And we want to thank all of you for your generosity and commitment to keep going with us in this really way to translate our Torah and mitzvot in real action. And exactly like Rabbi Igor tell us, we are working with the 4 R's, and I want to address the last R of our program, that is to rebuild. Because we are praying for peace, because we are people that never give up, because we keep with our hope. And in this time that we are really facing Pesach, and we are really close to Shabbat HaGadol, it is important to say that we trust in redemption, in freedom, and we trust that we are keep going with the same story for our kids. And this is also part of the Agadah, not only the 4 kids that Igor bring to us from Ukraine, also that we need to tell the story to our kids. And the war is part of our present and our stories to tell that a year ago we start, but we need to keep going. First of all, to acknowledge the strength and the depth of the global interconnectivity of the progressive Jewish communities. And we are so really grateful for the commitment, for the feeling that we are an extended family. Also to share with all of you that we are working to establish the Ukraine Endowment Fund that can ensure and can address the continuing and emerging needs. And we hope when the peace is coming back and our brothers and sisters coming back to the Ukraine to rebuild progressive Jewish life in Ukraine. And this is also part of our commitment. Please, this is time also to call to action. And we are asking all of you to come to our website and to donate, to support, to give, to be updated about the Ukraine Crisis Fund. Now that every one of us is coming to the good time to sit together around the table in Pesach, please open your door not only for Eliyahu Hanavi, open your heart and your hands to receive our brothers and sisters. We need to remember that in Egypt we asked Pharaoh, let my people go. Now we need to ask to the world and to Putin, let our brothers and sisters come back to the Ukraine. Let's to be part of the freedom and the joy of liberty, democracy, pluralism, inclusiveness, and a better world together. Thank you to every one of you to be part of this. We are open to keep going in contact. We are really partners. We are brothers and sisters on one people and one family. Chag Pesach Sameach.